Good afternoon, this is Clarence from Singapore. Today I'm going to bring to the second video that I did on Reality Capture, which is doing the workflow tutorial from RealityScan 2.0 then into Unreal Engine 5.6. So here I actually tried out a few methods differently. This time I use a turntable and I actually shoot our model using 3 different camera angles, and I tried a few different variations, even the resolution size of the video ranging from 4K to 2K. And I find it test out different version, and I have some conclusion that how I actually can approach using the video to turn into images method. So I brought one of the videos and brought into After Effects, and I will actually kind of trim it down, and then actually will render it as a JPEG sequence. So I have the images, but also tune down the resolution side, because I found out 4K resolution can take a long time to analyze. Once I'm done, you can see that I actually have just 800 over images of the video turned into JPEG sequences. So 800 of 5 images which I can use to do the scan. So now we're getting to the RealityScan. So RealityScan is actually part of the Unreal ecosystem, and previously it was named Reality Capture, now it's called RealityScan. So it's actually a desktop photogrammetry system application, which also have a mobile version I did in my first video. So you can see that actually is quite commonly used in 3D scanning, and there's a lot of examples you can actually get from the community, from the Epic Games. So we're gonna use RealityScan 2.0, which the latest version. Once okay, I'm gonna launch it from the Epic Game Launcher. The launching of the RealityScan is quite really fast. So you can see this is the interface of the RealityScan, and the other panels on top here, we're actually going to explore how to use it, and the viewport in the middle. So on top, they have the workflow, alignment, mesh model, view, which are some models we use a lot. So on the workflow side, we're actually going to use this to input the images that we created. So here I click on folder, and I choose the folder which has the images. So the images are put in this one particular folder. So I choose selected folder. And on the left side here, on the inputs here, you can see that the images will start to show. I've opened up the inputs tab, and then you will see that I have all the images and able to see it also on the preview. And I'm going to compare it with the images that I actually have in this folder. You can see that side by side is actually really the same from the first image to the last image. So it's good to kind of maintain all the images in one folder, so easily can use it for analysis. So under workflow, we have actually quite a few panels here. We can actually choose to different kind of layout. So I'm going to keep this 2 vertical panel where I actually can have the project and the details panel on the left, and then the viewport in the middle, and then also the 2D in the right. So we also can change the different viewport into different. I want to use 2D, and I also can turn it to 3D, or if I want to turn it into 4D and have more different function. Okay, so but for the purpose, I'm going to keep it to 2D. Right. So once I look at this one, the images, I'm pretty sure all this is okay already. So I'm going to go to the mask image here, which is one of the function where AI masking is available from RealityScan. And when I click on this one, it actually will analyze the images, and it actually will mask out the object from the background. So it took a while to analyze the masking for 805 images, but after it's done, you can able to see the mask. So what you can do is you click on the one object, and on the 2D tab, you just press tab. You can see that actually the background is actually separated from the main object. And it's not gonna be it's not 100% clean, but actually it's quite useful for us to separate the background from the object. So when the 3D scanning is done, we can analyze the image better. Once it's done, you can see that here we have the kind of preview of the all the Gaussian splatting points that you actually created, and it's not yet a fully 3D model yet because we are currently still analyzing. So you get all the camera points and the control points is there, so the able to us to analyze and have a kind of slight preview of what we're expecting once we press the generate 3D function. So on the mesh model side, here is we're gonna generate some of the 3D settings, and there's a lot of options like the normal detail which calculate the 3D model, and we actually can also create a preview first. So when I create a preview, right, we actually can able to get a very fast render of the entire model construction, and you can see that it's actually quite rough, and it's just for visualization of what to checking whether how big is the object and how much do we want to maybe control the size of the construction. So we actually can set the construction region and then kind of hold the control point to make sure we actually push it a little bit smaller, where we don't need to scan a lot bigger range. So and it actually take faster time to construct the 3D model later. Yeah, so we can't 100% be sure, but we actually can kind of roughly estimate that this is probably cover the entire 3D characters inside. Okay, up here, kind of pull it and double checking through the camera, and good so far. Even the bottom also trying to pull out. Well, actually the bottom actually has some parts that's not very clean at the end, but it's still okay. We're still gonna see how the result goes. Okay, so we actually can just kind of rotate and double check again before we actually go and create the high detail. Okay, so you see here, you can zoom out and zoom in to check. Okay, so probably this is will actually cover it. Alright, the next thing is we're going to either create the high details or we actually create a normal detail first. So actually in this case, I will actually go for the normal detail, and because we want to see the 3D model first before actually have the construction of the high detail later on. So this is all going to take some time. Once the normal details is constructed, you can see that now that more kind of the overall object that you can get from the scan, and it's actually quite rough because it's not actually texture and actually smooth yet. But for this model, we kind of guess that everything that we needed to capture is captured already. So we also can, in this stage, also reconstruct the vision again. So maybe to cut off more for the parts that we don't want to scan. In the past, I'm going to pull out a bit more. And you have to look at the different angles. Okay. So at the end of the day, we're trying to get roughly what we can scan at the end. And this probably would look much okay already. But the first one, we actually have more details on how we actually can see whether. And yeah, so the regions you can always set in different kind of parameters if you like to. Looking good. So now I'm going to create the high detail, which is going to take a bit longer time. In this case, we're just going to let it run when we clear the high details. And you cannot lie, it can take quite a long time, like maybe 2 hours. And definitely my previous few tries actually took quite a long time. So the image resolution also affected the way the 3D construction is being made. So that is just one of the things I found out. So I actually cut down the image resolution and also the number of images from previously 4,000 to less. Okay, but in this case, we look at the unwrapping function first. And here you can see that we can actually also unwrap the object to okay. In this case, I unwrap it. So the model has some unwrapping before I go to high detail. In this case, probably this is the low detail at the moment, so we can actually unwrap it first, then before we turn it into the high res. So I'm going to texture it also. So in this case, the texture is going to take some time also. Okay, once it's done, you can see that this is the roughly the details, and then because it's pretty good at the moment of the character, and it's looking good. Is the low poly version, but everything is look at is actually quite over there, the details, right? And looks exactly like the images. So we also can actually clear the region. So we have a good clear of the 3D object. Right, I think I'm pretty happy, even though this is not high detail yet. So you can always unwrap and texture again in this case. So you can see that I compare, right? I have the model 2 and model 1. Model 1 is actually the low poly, the preview version, and the model 2 is kind of like the normal model. Eventually, we didn't actually go to the high poly model at the end, but just to get this kind of resolution is quite good. It's only about and this 100K triangle count. So yeah, so in this case also, when you look at the images from the scan, and we actually can take all the air masking, and I think it's pretty much is actually clear much of the background from into the object. So say this is still okay in comparison. And again, you always can just do the air masking again to clean out if possible. You also can do masking for the meshes if you need to, and you use it for the other purposes when you actually apply the mask to the object using alpha and stuff. But in this case, if you want to try to regenerate mask again, you can always generate and replace the previous mask. Once it's done, okay, so you get a more cleaner look. So we're going to check the model integrity under the mesh model. So there's a few options. We can check integrity, whether the model is okay. So there's no corrupted triangles. And also check the topology. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, no manifold vertices and edges. And of course, you can actually ask the software to clean out the model if needed to. So RealityScan has such quite complete features of cleaning out a lot of the defects if you need to. So we only kind of show a few of the options, and there's a lot more options we can actually use under RealityScan, which is actually, I think, is a very powerful photogrammetry and 3D scan software. So now we're going to export the model. So there's quite a lot of options here we can choose. So we scroll down any model format if you need to, or like OBJ or for different software, we also can use this one to export. So we're going to use the MB export model because this part we usually use for the Unreal. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to just kind of put the name here and make sure I can find it somewhere. So once I press OK, and it will pop out the level details export. So really we don't actually need to change anything here, and this is what it is in the MBS format. We can use this as a function. So when I export it, wait for it to finish, then we actually can move on to Unreal in a while. Okay, now we're in the Unreal Engine 5.6. So first thing first, the content drawer, we're going to be ready for importing the object. So we're going to create a folder so we can organize our content properly. So we're going to type Reality Capture. Now we go to the folder and looking for the model. So previously I changed the name with the model so it doesn't affect. So as long as actually the APX format is the same. When I scroll down, the most important thing is actually because it is a scan object, I probably want to look at the final part where I need the materials and texture to be imported along. So in this case, this import texture, import material is actually turned on. Okay, I'm happy with this function, make sure double check, and then we can then press import. So it's going to take a little bit time to import. Mostly the 3D asset will actually need times to actually properly calculate the meshes. Okay, so here the slide mesh is created, and first thing first, always save the files if needed to. Actually, that will check files. So first thing, if you check the slide mesh, you can see this is kind of like the mid poly. So you can see the 630,000 polygon. Actually, it's still pretty okay, but once you have lighting, actually you can see a lot of defects. So we haven't done any cleaning yet. So in the materials, we can click on the materials and we can find this is a simple material set where they only have the base color, which is still okay. So the setup here, when you want to check, we're actually going to adjust this later. Okay. You can also check the texture. With 3D scan, usually the texture, we cannot have not much control on the UV mapping. This is what it is. Okay, we're gonna try to maybe put this object into the scene. Okay, go to and drag the sliding mesh. Once put into the scene, this scene is without lighting. So without lighting, we actually can get a very basic look and a kind of neutral look of the object. So you can see here, without lighting, we actually have something quite similar to what we see in RealityScan. Okay, right, then so I'm going to put aside a bit, and I'm going to adjust the material. Okay, so the material here, we can actually adjust the option here, and we can adjust the diffuse power. So this one, diffuse value actually will either 1, we can actually make it more vibrant by having power of greater than 2. Okay, so I'm going to keep it to 1. And on the right side here, I'm going to push the specular to 0. Pull down the specular as well as the roughness to 0. So I want both of these will actually be not affecting the natural look of the material, and you see it's more realistic if we compare to that. Of course, this is actually about lighting at the moment. That's pretty much okay. So also I want to also turn off the min-map for the texture, so actually we do not actually be on blur once we actually zoom out a bit further away from the model. So looking good, and so this is how this the simple setup from the default, and this is pretty good looking compared to to the RealityScan. It's actually exactly what it is. It looks similar without lighting in the moment, which is a different look. Also, if I want to have lighting, okay, we can make sure we save first before we actually try. once you save the map. So now we're going to try to put lighting. So I'm going to use the environment light mixer. I'm just going to click on all the elements here. The directional light and the skylight atmosphere all turn on. Once you turn on, you can probably see actually closer to what we see on the Select Mesh editor preview, and there's a lot of defects. And of course, we need to actually always optimize the 3D scan object, whether it's actually retopologize if we needed to, or making asset in games, or maybe we should go and create different LD version if possible. But nonetheless, it's actually a good start for using this software. RealityScan, actually clicking is actually quite a good software to use to 3D scan any object.